JBNN keep you informed. I'm Michelle Jones, and in the news, one of the gang's most ruthless, Jahzeel Blake, given light sentence. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, leave us a comment, and click the notification bell to receive our daily news items. Jahzeel Blake, otherwise called Squeeze Eye, a gangster was marked for death by Blackman Bryan, the one-down gang leader, because he was thought to be a police informant, was sentenced to 11 years and 9 months by Chief Justice Brian Sykes on Tuesday. In the social inquiry report read by Justice Sykes yesterday, residents in the community noted that they did not want Blake back in their community.
So where were we now? With Mr. Blake? Yes, we were at Mr. Blake. Right. So Mr. Blake, yes. So Mr. Blake now was convicted on counts 2, 7, and 8. That is membership of a criminal organization, and also the counts dealing with the death of Mr. Jermaine Bryan and Miss Sadella Walder and the arson of the dwelling house that they were living in at the time, or they were located at the time. As indicated previously, Mr. Blake was one of the persons who went down to fisheries with the accountant to determine whether the targets were there. This was across the road from the National Police Academy. And he it was who called back to indicate that the targets were there, and this was the context in which Mr. Prince turned up and was shooting at presumably the intended target. In addition to that, Mr. Blake was on one of the trips by the accountant to kill Dooley in respect of the killing of the Rastaman. This is in respect of count 15. Mr. Blake was tasked with the responsibility of going to see whether the Rastaman was there. And in addition to that, Mr. Blake was part of the group of persons who had gathered by the church and by the home to go over to fisheries. And we know that what happened at fisheries resulted in the deaths of 2 persons. The evidence doesn't disclose that Mr. Blake by his own hand caused the death of any of these 2 persons, but nonetheless, he facilitated the murder and the arson by being present, giving moral, emotional, and other support to the persons who were going on this enterprise. And he was very clear as to what this mission was about, having regard to what Mr. Bryan had said before. So that was the context now that led to his conviction on counts 7 and 8. And that evidence went to show that he was a member of the criminal organization. And in respect of the trips to kill Dooley, that showed that he was a member of the criminal organization. And when he went down to fisheries, that showed that he was a member of a criminal organization. The social inquiry report indicates that he's innocent of the charges, that is his claim, and in effect, the witness is lying on him. He agreed that there's a strong gang presence in the community and said that some of his peers were involved, but declared that he was never a part of the gang and that the witness falsely placed him at the scenes of crimes. So that is his take on the matter. He is from the Jones Avenue community, first child for his parents, and he said he really attended school, were constraints financially, and when he was by his grandmother, he'd be physically abused by his uncle. And thus, this is what led to him being on the streets and taking refuge there. He says the gang culture claimed a number of his friends, but he managed to survive and to stay away from it. The probation officer spoke to his grandmother, who eventually indicated that he was a good child growing up, but turned to negative association in early adulthood. She further went on to say that he was spoken to and warned on numerous occasions to cease his deviant behavior and to desist from associating with criminals and bad men in the community, but these warnings fell on deaf ears. She even added that because of his affiliations and associations, his family, including his mother, had to relocate because her life was threatened, and apparently criminals made their appearance at her home from time to time. In the community itself, the residents say that he was a good youth who grew up in the community but started mixing with the wrong crowd and was recruited in the gang from an early age. They say he's a prominent member of the gang, and some even described him as a driver. Some of the respondents said although he was a driver, he was not directly involved in the killings. Others say that he often disobeyed the leader by refusing to be involved in actual killings, and he fell out of favor with the leader. And interestingly, what some of the residents say here coincides with what one of the witnesses said, that at some point the plan was to eliminate Mr. Blake, but for some reason that plan did not materialize. So the residents continue by indicating that he has been, to use their words now, a menace to the community from an early age, and the report continues in that vein. So what is quite clear is that there are not many persons in Jones Avenue who have a favorable view of Mr. Blake. And at 33 years old to now, they have this to say. This is their recommendation. They unanimously stated that Squeeze-Eye should be punished with the full extent of the law for the offenses, and being incarcerated would relieve the burden of fear, crime, mayhem, and violence from the community. They also hope that incarceration will invoke changes in his general criminal behavior. So it is quite an indictment, and the most remarkable thing about this is that it seems as if the probation officers were hard-pressed to find even one person who could speak favorably about Mr. Blake. I mean, even his grandmother, while she was reluctant at first, eventually said, these are her words now, if he spreads his bed hard, he should face the consequences of his actions. So Mr. Blake, it really is an indication of the life that you have lived, because normally the women, especially the grandmothers, tend to be very sympathetic. They're always the ones saying he's really not as bad as people making him out to be. They speak about all the good things about you. And so when we're at this stage where the matriarch of the family finds it very difficult to say one good word about you after the days of your youth ended, it's perhaps an indication of the life that you have lived. It really is. So, now Mr. Blake, you have one previous conviction. This is for carnal abuse, where you were given an imprisonment for 3 years and it was suspended for 2 years, and this was in 2012. The report indicates that this is not an established pattern of offending, but an escalation of offending. Now, so what we are looking at, Mr. Blake, is a situation in which the circumstances outlined by the witnesses and what has been said by the community members actually coincide. Not often that this happens, but here we are. And so what the citizens are saying is that you're a persistent, consistent threat to their well-being, and they would much prefer you to be away from the community. So, but where would you go? Now, it was said on your behalf that you were employed as a welder and did barbering on weekends, and it is said that you want to make a more positive impact on your life of your daughter, and you wish to be a role model for her. It was said that you have been in custody 4 years and 3 months. You have already lost family and the opportunity for a relationship with your daughter. But it appears from what the grandmother is saying and what the people in the community are saying, that you already lost your family even before you found yourself in the circumstances that you are now in, because the report says that your family members and the grandmother had to relocate because gunmen were coming to their house, inferentially to look for you. So you, by your conduct, you have really lost your family. But what to do except to proceed to sentencing? Now, in all the circumstances here, Mr. Blake, outlining how you became a member of the criminal organization, the starting point in this case is 16 years for membership. And in respect of the other 2 counts on the indictment, the starting point is also 16 years. There's nothing to increase or decrease the starting point. So it remains at 16 on all 3 counts. They're going to be taking away the 4 years and 4 years and 3 months from the 16, and that gives us 11 and 9 months. So it's 11 years and 9 months on all 3 counts, sir, and all 3 are to be served concurrently. So it's 11 years and 9 months, Mr. Blake.
JBN will keep you informed. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, leave us a comment, and click the notification bell to receive our daily news items.